If you're anything like me, fear is something that has held you back time and time again in life. And this video, we're going to talk about fear, how to navigate it, and by the end, hopefully we'll have some tools and you'll be more understanding of how to navigate your own fear. So finally, you can do that thing that you've been aching to deep in your heart and, well, start living a life that's closer to yours. Let's do this. So, fear. Fear is something that I think is very misunderstood in today's world. I don't think we're taught enough about it and how to navigate it. Fear, in my experience, has been something that I've felt viscerally from the top of my head deep into the bottom of my feet. And weirdly, I don't experience fear about big performances. So I can go on stage and talk to 10,000 people. I don't feel much fear. I feel nervous, but I don't feel fear. However, setting up a payment plan for my electric bill or creating a YouTube video is freaking terrifying to me. That's because I have a fear of like holding my own emotions and like being my own counsel, but I don't have a fear of being in front of loads of people because it's very energetic to me. You might be otherwise. There are many different ways to be fearful, and that's okay. We can solve all of them because in the end, they all boil down to two main things. We're going to talk about that. We're going to have to talk about how to deal with both of them, the sneaky ways fear manifests itself, exercises to solve it, and then a note on fear that you may not have thought about in the past. Let's do this. I'd like to start with a little bit of a myth. It's something that I haven't researched very much, so I might bodge it, and that's okay. It's about the Knights of the Round Table, and it's a King Arthur story. It's about the Holy Grail. And in this myth, the Holy Grail is this lost artifact that is like the most important artifact in the world. Like, if you get it, it's super important. It's the key to eternal life, whatever it is. And if you've ever heard of the story of the Knights of the Round Table, they all meet around this table. And they all talk about where they have this big meeting about where they're going to look for the Holy Grail. And one knight says, I'm going to look in the deepest, darkest, scariest forest. Another knight goes, I'm going to look on the tallest, highest cliffs. And then another knight goes, I'm going to look in the deepest lake, in the scariest, darkest lake. Another knight goes, I'm going to talk to the scariest person I know about this Holy Grail. And another person says, I'm going to talk to a cat about the Holy Grail. You might be seeing where this is going. But essentially, the story is this. Each knight looked where they are most scared. So each knight picked their individual fear and went and searched in that place. Because weirdly, our deepest fears can hide our most deepest desires. The things that scare us the most normally hide the things that we want the most. That's not always true, but a lot of the time that's the case. And that's why if you are feeling unfulfilled in life, you have an ache to do something, you might not do it because the fear is so strong because it really matters to you. I've spent a very long time of my life doing things that don't scare me and then also feeling very unfulfilled. I've mentioned it before, but making YouTube videos is the thing I've wanted to do since I was about 9 years old. Yet, because it's terrifying, I've done everything except that includes starting 3 successful businesses and then quitting them because I wasn't fulfilled. Yeah, I know. So, let's go into the 2 types of fear and how to navigate each. Because if you use one type of solution on the wrong type of fear, you're just going to like make it worse, basically. If you use one on the other, it's not too bad the other way around. But yeah, there's rational fear and there is irrational fear. Rational fear and irrational fear. Rational fear is something that can be used by logic, and I would actually argue that rational fear is very healthy, like something that we really should have. Rational fear keeps us alive. Rational fear is an example when you're driving a car at 95 miles an hour and you're quite nervous. That's a fear that you should be, you should be quite scared. That's like I'm doing something quite dangerous. I should be scared. That fear keeps you alive, keeps you alert, stops you doing silly things, stops you, an even better example, if you see an open flame and you're a bit like, I'm scared, that's good. You should have that fear. That's important. The other fear is a rational fear. So that's totally emotional. It doesn't have any logic. An example I always use is a fear of the ocean. If you're terrified of the ocean, and I don't mean as in just like afraid of big waves or sharks, I mean as in literally like you can't get in the water. That's an irrational fear. The ocean isn't that dangerous. And your emotional due to some trauma or due to some preconceived things isn't fitting it. An amazing example that I can use personally is I'm terrified of heights. Like, and I mean SH1T scared of heights. Like, I can be like, if I'm like 10 foot in the air exposed, I start getting sweaty. Even talking about this, I start getting sweaty hands. I start feeling a bit dizzy. Like, oh, I feel uncomfortable. Like, being at height for me is, I do not like it. I can work through it, and I have and I will, through the methods that I will talk about. But default, I'm not happy with heights. On the flip side, I'm very comfortable in the ocean. I don't know if that's because of my genetics or my experience growing up, but I surf quite a lot, and I have surfed up to 15-foot waves. Now, the difference was I have definitely had panics when I've been surfing big waves. I've had panic attacks surfing big waves multiple times. The difference is when I was having those panics, that was a rational fear. I remember thinking, I should be afraid right now. I'm in danger. This is dangerous. And so I was able to talk myself through it. So, do you understand now the difference between a rational fear and an irrational fear? The biggest difference between those two things is one is logical and one is purely emotional. Now, the problem is, if you try and treat an emotional fear with logic, you're basically going to do the equivalent of pouring water on a grease fire, and you're just going to feed it, and it's going to get bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. Think of it like this. Imagine if a toddler is coming to you and it goes, oh my God, Mum, I'm really, really scared. There's a monster under the bed. And you as a mum turn around and go, yes, well, there is a very small chance that someone might have broken in and got under your bed. But let's look at the census and the statistics of what might happen in how many break-ins were in the neighborhood. You know, the kid and you, if you're a kid, is going to be like, what? Why are you validating this? This isn't okay. Like, an emotional fear needs to be dealt with emotions and other tactics. However, a logical fear, such as for me, when I was in the middle of 15-foot waves, terrified, seeing these buildings of water coming at me, and I can't stop having a panic attack, I can sit myself down and go, okay, you're in a dangerous situation. You've trained for this. You can swim if you lose your surfboard. You will not get held down for longer than you're comfortable. If you need to at any moment, you can leave. And that calmed me down. It was a logical fear that I could use logic to counteract. So, let's start with logic ones. Logic ones are the easiest, and they're the ones that won't hold you back as much because, well, in my opinion, I don't think logical fears are the things that will really, really hold you back. They're kind of healthy ones, and there's some tricks you can do to establish it. A logical fear is something that you can explain very clearly in sentences why you are afraid. For example, I'm in 15-foot waves. I'm scared of drowning because there is a danger of taking a big wave on the head, being underwater for a long time, and dying. I'm afraid of, and then emotionally, I can't explain it in a sentence about my fear of heights. I can't explain to someone why, if I'm tied in via 4 harnesses with ropes and everything, and there's no way I could fall, I'm still terrified 20 feet in the air. I can't explain that in a sentence. So, we've already explained what you do with logic. With logical fears, we'll just touch on it. You just need to explain yourself how you're safe, explain how you're prepared, go through what could happen, and then handle it. It's just logic. However, emotional fears, this is the juice. The emotional fears are the things that will really, really hold you back. And they are the things that you can't navigate in the normal way because they don't respond to logic. Because the fear isn't logical. It's totally emotional. Maybe from a trauma that you've got, maybe from an identity that you have, maybe from just your genetic code. It doesn't matter. That's the funny thing. The whole secret of that fear is that the reason the fear is there doesn't matter. And if you go into that and try and solve it, you're just going to end up making it worse, because you're just going to like add oxygen to that flame over and over and over and over again. The way that you treat emotional fear is that you just don't, it's kind of like you don't negotiate with terrorists. Like you don't go in there and really start fighting it. You have to handle it. The best way I like to think about it is, when a toddler is in like a nuclear meltdown, like freaking out, you don't sit down with the toddler in that moment and go, all right, dude, you need to chill out, calm down. Blah, blah, blah. You parent the toddler. You might just go to the toddler. Okay, in 10 seconds, we're going to move. Like, that's fine. Pick it up and we're like, all right, let's do this. You have to treat yourself like that freaked out toddler and understand that the only way you're going to get through it is by doing the thing in the smallest way possible that you can do it. Exposure therapy is pretty much the only way that you're going to navigate the emotional fear. And when I say exposure therapy, I don't mean just freaking throw yourself full send, because the problem is you're going to re-traumatize yourself. You're going to make it seem even scarier and all that stuff. The trick is you need to set the minimum level of thing that you can do with that fear. In my case, I'm not going to talk about heights because heights don't matter to me that much. What does really matter to me is making YouTube videos. That's the most important thing to me right now. So for me, I'm really scared because I don't want to be bad at something and I have really high standards and I just, that's the emotional aspect. It's just, And so for me, I have set a new minimum standard, which is I would like to sit down and post a bad YouTube video once a day or 3 times a week. I'm going to start with 3 times a week. Now, I've already done that a few times. And when I started the last time, I was so afraid that I couldn't even post a video. So I had to even scale it back a bit. I had to sit down. I got to the point where my exposure for me was I have to go for a walk in the forest and think about making a YouTube video. That was all I had to do as my like exposure thing. And I even resisted doing that because my brain came up with so many amazing ways of describing like fear and like how it's all going to go wrong and how I'm terrible and how it's awful and it's useless. And that last bit we're going to talk about next. And that's the sneaky way that emotional fear gets you. So yeah, exposure therapy is the way, and parenting yourself and lowering the bar. And we'll talk about lowering the bar in another video because I don't want to go on for too long. How long have we been on this video so far? We are 12 minutes. Okay, we've got to speed this up. Basically, exposure therapy is the most important way, but gentle parenting yourself. You have to understand that you will always experience this visceral level of fear and create a minimum level of working. Like, what's the minimum viable effort that you can do that day? If I were you, I would write that down on your fridge or on your wall. What's the minimum thing you do that day? And again, change the goal from outcome, so what you get from doing the thing, to input. So change it from what do you get from doing the thing. For me, what do I like? That would be like if I said I want 10,000 subscribers versus if I change it to input of I want to make 100 videos. Those are the two ways. Then you keep things in your control. And at any moment, if it's too scary, just break it down again. So if you're like, today I can't make a video, it's too much, just sit and write a video. For me, like, I just sit and write a video or talk about a video or talk to a friend about how I want to make a video. The thing about emotional fear is you are essentially dealing with a really scared child. And with a scared child, you never tell it off for being too scared to do the thing. You're always supportive every day, telling it how it can do it, reaffirming that it's great. And you need to be able to do that for yourself. And that is a skill that if you haven't had because maybe you didn't have a lot of love growing up or you weren't taught how to do it, it's really hard at first and can touch on some really difficult things. And we'll go into that more in the future. But that's basically the way. You got to learn to love yourself, forgive yourself, and create a minimum viable product, but minimum viable action. So I would say to you, what is something you really want to do and you're really scared of? What is a way that you can create? What is the smallest thing that you could do to expose yourself to that? And could you do that every day for a week? For example, I'm going to use my fear of heights. Could I go to a climbing gym and look at a high wall? Could I go, there's a very steep cliffs where I live. Could I walk within 20 feet of those cliffs and look at them and be like, ugh? I could do that every day for a week. That would be enough for me. So then you can build on it and building it and building it. And then there's some amazing things that we'll talk about in the future about visualization and writing down what you want it to look like and keeping the log. And suddenly what you'll find is as you make these minimum actions, you'll do another thing. And out of nowhere, you'll be so far ahead that you won't even recognize where you're at. And the only way you'll be able to tell how far you've come is by looking backwards and being like, whoa, I have come really far. Because what's funny is, and this is the hard part about dealing with fear, is as soon as you get past the first gateway, your brain will be like, right, we're here now. That's the new default. Next gateway. So you never feel that sense of achievement unless you really learn to celebrate it. You have to learn to celebrate. Learn to like be happy with the things you've already achieved, or else you'll never really feel satisfied. It's like a double entendre of like you need to be unsatisfied and satisfied. But let's keep this back on track. Finally, the last three things. We'll talk about the sneaky ways that fear manifests itself. You might think that fear can just be that pit in your stomach, sweaty, nervousness, palms heavy, knees weak, all that stuff. But funnily enough, fear can manifest itself in so many other ways. Fear can manifest itself as can't be bothered. Fear can manifest itself as don't want to do the thing. Fear can manifest itself as it's boring. Like these are all ways that fear can manifest itself. The way I like to think about it is you have to basically create it as if it's one thing or another. Either, do I really want to do the thing? And if you really don't want to do the thing, like at all, like I never want to do it again, it doesn't bother me, like just doesn't do it, then it's not the case. But you have to get really good at learning. I would take a big inventory of yourself and really look at what you do when you're really scared. What's your reaction? Like for me, when I'm scared of doing something and I really don't want to do it, my body will manifest that as in, I just don't want to do the thing. I have no interest in doing the thing. It's an awful thing. It's boring. It's terrible. Oh, why would I even bother doing that? When actually I really want to do the thing. So it doesn't actually manifest as a fear response to me. It manifests as just like a can't be bothered response. And I find that really funny because it's really sneaky. So just learn that fear doesn't have to mean panic attack. It can mean avoidance. It can mean, don't care about the thing. So many other ways. Exercises to move through fear. I would say the best ones are writing down, I am afraid of X because of Y, or writing down the exposure thing. Wait, no, that did scratch what I just said. The biggest things are the exposure thing. I would say my biggest thing for you is write down a goal that you could do every day that has an action, and then do that every day for a week. And then I want you, if you do that thing every day for a week, I want you to sit down, tick the boxes, like have a place where you write the boxes and can tick them, and then finish and be like, I'm proud of myself, and see how you feel about the thing. Because this is going to be a long process. It's learning to navigate fear is something that we aren't taught very well in our life. And I feel like that's really sad because it's really, really important. Like, navigating fear is one of the most important things in our life. And that's what this last note on the secret about fear is. Fear is not something we should avoid. In fact, it's something we should really run towards if we can. Like, run headfirst into fear. Because fear is basically a fantastic indicator of the thing we really want to do. It's like a sore muscle. Like, if we didn't want to do it, then fear would... we wouldn't be afraid. Like, if you didn't want to do something, you wouldn't be afraid. You just wouldn't be bothered. Like, there's so many things in life that you're probably not that actually like bothered about. But if there's something you're genuinely afraid, you'll feel resistance to, it's a fantastic place to look about what you really want to do, an inquiry. And so learning to hold fear is an amazing skill. Because the thing is about fear is you'll never actually lose fear. Because as soon as you get over the fear of doing the one thing, you'll just pick the next scariest thing. And that's what life is all about, like learning to handle those hurdles. So the sooner you learn to navigate fear, the more you can go and take those bigger, bolder, braver choices and get to exactly the life you want. And there's some amazing tools about navigating fear, such as meditation, journaling, identity work, exposure therapy, and we're going to talk about all of them on this channel. So subscribe, give us a comment, see if there's anything you're going to do today with the exposure therapy. Is there something you're going to expose yourself to once a week and try? I'd love to hear it. But yeah, thank you so much for watching. Have a wonderful day. Go and chase your dreams, navigate fear, and I look forward to seeing you soon. Peace and love.